welcome to episode 90 of Stitched in Sweden. I'm Maria and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Stitched in Sweden. I thought I would come by today and talk to you a little bit about what I have been making in the past month or so and share with you a couple of the designs that I've been working on and yeah, just give you kind of a little update in that way. So I've been doing a lot of knitting actually, and I've been doing a lot of knitting and a lot of sewing actually, mostly for Eloise and for some design projects, so I thought I would just share those with you now. Today's Thanksgiving if you are in the US, so happy Thanksgiving. We just had a delicious lasagna dinner and had a nice call with my family in Colorado, so and in Oregon. So not a traditional Thanksgiving here by any means, but that's what we did. So let's just jump right in. I'll start out with what I'm wearing. It's quite difficult to see now. I started this recording earlier during my lunch break when it was still light outside, but my camera had only about 30 seconds of battery in it, so that didn't get me very far. So now it's quite difficult to see, but this is a navy blue cotton Nico top, which is a pattern from True Bias. This is one of my most repeat sewn patterns for myself. I have a lot of patterns that I sew on repeat for Eloise, and that's because she wears them and then grows out of them. And for myself, I don't have as many patterns that I use over and over. I guess in terms of t-shirts, which is something that is, I tend to make kind of knit fabric jersey tops for myself most, and jeans. So I guess I do have the patterns that I use most of the time are repeat patterns, but I make the ginger jeans over and over again, and I also make this top, which is the Nico top, as I said, over and over again, and I also make the Genie ready to sew t-shirt, short sleeve shirt. Actually, I think that pattern also has a long sleeve version, maybe a couple different versions, but I've always made the short sleeve version, which I have made several times as well. This Nico top I really like the fit of. I have adjusted the fit for myself, which is not something that I always do, even though it is something that I should always do. The first one that I made directly from the pattern was way too tight for me around the neck. It was like too much of a choky feeling for me here. So to solve that, I just basically make the neck size up compared to my body size, which works perfectly for me. And then in terms of other adjustments, I have made a broad back adjustment, I think it's called, because this seam here on the first version that I made according to the pattern was like too far in, so it was really pulling like more like that. Now it sits nicely where I want it on the outside of my shoulder. And then the other adjustment that I made is that I did a full bicep adjustment. I don't think of myself as having particularly large biceps. The pattern was really tight, and that was kind of an uncomfortable part on the first version I made. So just adding a bit more room in there helped make this a really comfortable shirt for me that I now make all the time. Now, this particular one has sat in my pile of sewing stuff about 90% finished for probably the past 3 years. All I had to do was to fold up the sleeve cuffs here and also the bottom hem and finish that, and that took all of 5 minutes to do, but now it's finally done. I'm actually kind of glad that I waited this long to do that because I talked briefly about it last time. I have a new sewing machine which is a cover stitch. This particular one is a it's a Brother 2340 CV, and it's one that I purchased used from actually Facebook Marketplace near, or not near where I live, it wasn't near where I lived. The person was in Sweden and they shipped it to me. And I really, really like it. So if you're intrigued by, if you like sewing and you wear a lot of jersey clothes and you want to sew your own jersey clothes, and you've been told that you can do it on a regular sewing machine, you can do it on a regular sewing machine. But if you have any kind of thought that it might be something that you like to do regularly or with any kind of, yeah, mass production, not mass production, but you know what I mean, I would really recommend that you try a serger overlocker machine. And then if you try that and you like it and you sew lots of jersey things, then I would really recommend a cover stitch if you can get one. Mine is used, as I said. It really decreased the price significantly, and the one that I got was like new basically because the person had bought it and then they didn't have time to use it, so they decided to sell it. Yeah, if you sew jersey with any kind of frequency or regularity, then it's a really nice machine to have, because basically what it does is it creates 2 parallel stitches next to each other, which you can also achieve with a twin needle, which I did for a long time. The difference with this machine and just using a twin needle is that the back part of the stitching creates this kind of, it's more than just the zigzag that the twin needle creates. It creates this whole little pattern of stitches, which makes a very stretchy seam. So with a twin needle, there's still a bit of resistance and you can rip the seam kind of easily sometimes for certain seams. I find particularly with children's clothes, because you have to, you know, stretch it over their head, or they're, you know, pushing their arm through this sleeve in a kind of funny way. It might be less careful than how you would put on your own clothes. It's really good to make sure that you have really stretchy seams. Now, of course, I don't want to discourage anybody from sewing with what they have. You can definitely use a stretch needle and a twin needle on a regular sewing machine and achieve really nice professional results. But if you want to take it the next step further, then an overlocker and then a cover stitch are really nice to have. So I will go ahead and share with you the projects that I have sewn for Eloise in the last month or so. What I like to do for her clothes, and I've still been able to do up to this point, is that I actually am making, I would say, about 90% of her clothes. And how I do it is I kind of look at what she has that fits her, if we're coming to kind of a new season or a new size, if she's growing out of a size. I kind of look at what we have that still fits and will still work moving into the next period, and then think about what I need to kind of add to what she has to make kind of a full enough workable wardrobe for her. So yeah, last time she had a lot of leggings, which still carried over from the previous size. so I didn't have a lot of leggings to make. This time she doesn't have very many leggings, and because she's crawling so much more, a pair of the gray leggings that I had made her before in wool have holes in the knees, which is totally fine for me because she wore those leggings non-stop, and they, you know, gave her a lot of warmth, and she really, you know, she got the most out of them. So it doesn't bother me at all if she has holes in them now. I had a question about that actually in a comment on YouTube, like that aren't I worried about her having such like fine fabrics when I think because I was talking about sewing in the merino wool with her, for her. And the thing is that I know that she will wear things for a short period of time, but I try to make just a kind of a small amount of clothes that will get her through the week before we do laundry again, basically, that she can wear and be comfortable in. And she wears them so much because she doesn't have that many clothes that it doesn't bother me that she gets holes in her knees of her leggings, because that means they're well loved, well worn, and to me that's much more important than having something that she also wore a lot but was uncomfortable or sweaty or something. So that's why I prefer to, when I can, dress her in like natural fibers like cotton and wool. Sometimes polyester and non-natural fibers serve a really good purpose, like for waterproofing purposes and wind stopping. So which I know to some degree wool can also do, but yeah, I think certain fabrics have purpose for different reasons, and for clothes that are going to be directly on her body, like when she has a onesie on and leggings, I prefer that those are either 100% cotton or 100% wool. So that's what I choose to sew in for her. And actually, we had a little situation yesterday when we were in the car and she threw up and we didn't have extra clothes because we don't really go anywhere usually, and so we haven't had to like get that ingrained in our brain. Anyway, we had to make a stop at a shop to pick up an outfit for her because she had puke all over her other one. Anyway, the conclusion to this story is that going into that shop and buying clothes for her, which were, you know, 100% cotton, just simple onesie and leggings, was quite expensive. And so it kind of like reaffirmed, I haven't been in a shop or bought clothes for her in in quite a while. I hardly ever buy clothes for her because we also get a lot of nice hand-me-downs from her cousins. And we received a lot of nice gifts and everything like that too. So I hardly have bought clothes for her, but it is expensive to buy children's clothes, and it kind of reaffirmed for me it justified for me the cost of buying quality fabric for her to make her clothes, because I still get more clothing items out of a meter of fabric for her, and comparing the price of that to like her clothing, it still is actually more cost effective for me to sew for her. Did you want to know about this? Probably not. Let's just move on to the clothes that I have made for her for hopefully the rest of winter, but we'll see. There might need to be some additions in there along the way, which is also fine. But the goal is to get her through winter. So I'll just go through and show you what I've been sewing for her. And the way that I sewed these, you may have seen on Instagram if you follow me there. What I really like to do when I'm sewing, especially clothes for Eloise, because the pieces are all so small and they're really, in general, they're quite simple patterns, like with a few seams. So I really like doing batch sewing, and actually I like to batch every part of the process that I can. So what I mean by that is I will make a plan, write out all the patterns that I'm going to use for the clothes that she needs. Let's say, okay, I decide she needs 3 pairs of leggings. What pattern am I going to use? Take out that pattern. What onesie pattern am I going to use? Does she need any t-shirts? Does she need any pajamas? I take out all those patterns. Then I will spend one night, or however long it takes, to trace off all of the new size that she needs, if she needs a new size. Usually she does. So I will trace everything in one night, and then maybe I'll cut out all those traced pieces in the next night and iron them flat. And then maybe the next night I will cut all the fabric. Usually, I mean, it's optimistic to say that these tasks take one night each, but you get the idea that you do everything, you do all of the patterns tracing at one time. So then I can set up my desk so that it's for pattern tracing. And then I do all of the cutting at one time. So I clear my machines off my desk and I have my big cutting mat out, and I can just go through and cut all the pieces and then make these nice little stacks of each of the projects. And it's just super satisfying to do that. Then I also do batch sewing. So I will separate the fabrics into like colors for which thread I'm going to use. So for the overlocker in particular, I will first sew all the seams that I'm going to use a white thread. I have both white thread and I have black thread for my overlocker. And I'll do everything, all the seams that are going to have white thread, and I don't cut the thread in between. I just, you know, do one seam and then pick up the next piece and do that seam, and I just keep threading them through until everything is sewn as far as it can go on that machine. And then I move maybe to the other machine if, you know, there's a neckband that needs a different kind of seam or whatever. And that way, even though each step of the process takes a little while, at the end, all of a sudden you're done and you have all of your pieces of clothing finished. So last night I finished 10 things, and like this whole stack is done now, and it's just gonna go directly in her closet as soon as I'm done with this video. So yeah, to me that works really well, and it's just a really effective use of time and also a use of my space, which is also, I guess that's part of the use of time, because you don't have to reset up everything for each tiny little project. Like to do one onesie, I don't just trace off that pattern, just cut out for that one onesie, just set up my machines for that one onesie. Like that, all of those steps itself would take much longer than doing it in these batches. So that's what I do. So I will go through and now show you finally what I made her. And I'll tell you what patterns I used along the way, so that if you're interested, these are all, I think these are all patterns that I've made before and are repeats for her. So this is the Raglan PJ top, which is a pattern from Lowland Kids, and Lowland Kids is one of my favorite pattern companies. I also have a little tag in here. Oops. It says me made, and then it has the size there. They're two separate tags actually, I just put them together. I'll also show you here, if you can see, this seam up here has the cover stitch. That's what the cover stitch, the back side of the cover stitch looks like. And then this is the overlock. And then on the front side of the cover stitch, if you can see that, you get these two parallel seams, and then like this very stretchy, yeah. If you look at the inside of a shirt, that like a t-shirt from the store, you'll probably see that kind of seam. So I really like the finish that gives. This is in some merino wool. This is a lighter weight merino wool that I got from We Are the Fabric store. This is the same lighter weight fabric as a more medium gray onesie that I made her before, and also the leggings. And those are the leggings which now have a hole in them, have holes in the knees. So I don't think that this particular fabric, this lighter weight wool, is necessarily the best for leggings for a crawling baby, but the other slightly thicker wool that I made her another kind of set out of, she has worn just as much and it doesn't have holes, so maybe it wasn't the smartest, but I also have made her these are the Lowland Kids PJ bottoms, and they have this gusseted part on the front and back, and an elastic waistband. I added the tag here, and they have just a cuff at the bottom. So the idea with this set is it can be PJs, but the idea is actually to be long underwear, so she could have it under something for extra warmth. Then also in wool, I made, this is the some of the leftover fabric from the onesie and leggings that I made her last time. I decided to make her this beanie, which is a different beanie than I made before. This is called I think it's called the Slouchy Beanie or Slouch Beanie from Brindle and Twig, which is another really great pattern company for Jersey kids clothes. And this is the fabric, which is also the merino wool from We Are the Fabric store. It's just slightly thicker, and I think is better served for clothes that are going to get a little bit more friction, wear and tear kind of. I took the PJ pants from Lowland Kids and I made some footy pajama bottoms. Now, I'm pretty sure that Lowland Kids has basically this exact pattern with the feet on it, but I didn't buy a new pattern because I had the other legging pattern with this kind of the gusset part here. And then I also have a pair of like full one-piece pajamas that have feet on them from Brindle and Twig. So, and I've made this pattern several times now, so I know like how the construction works and everything. So I just decided to cut out the pieces for that and combine them with this legging pattern. So that was kind of a little mini hack, but she does have a pattern directly for these footy onesies, footy pajama pants, just to buy if you want. And this is another little tag that I have, one of a kind. And this fabric is leftover fabric from a Nico top that I have and made for myself, which is, I think, a wool blend from Guthrie and Ghani, which is a fabric store in the UK, which I bought from their online fabric store. And I also made a matching top for that. This one is the raglan PJ top, so the same as the gray long underwear shirt. And the idea with these blue ones is that they will be pajamas because I like when she has her feet covered. I don't personally like my feet covered when I sleep, but I think, yeah, for pajamas where there's no feet on them, I always put socks on her because when I feed her in the middle of the night, her feet are otherwise cold. So these blue ones are for pajama purposes, but you know, she could also wear this shirt as a regular shirt if she needed to. So when I'm planning her clothes to, I mean, she's a baby, so she doesn't really need to match if she doesn't want to. Not that anybody needs to match if they don't want to, but part of the fun for me when I'm planning her kind of outfits is that I sort of try to think about what fabrics will coordinate with each other, because I know that she'll be wearing them for like a short period of time when they fit her. So I don't know why, I just felt like I needed to add that now, but I did. So everything is kind of meant to mix and match. So then we have the next kind of most common pattern that I make for her, which is the bodysuit number 9 from Brindle and Twig. And this is a long sleeved onesie pattern, which here I've made in this very nice striped fabric. This is a 95% cotton, 5% elastic fabric from Tyg Drömmar, which is a Swedish fabric store online. This one works really well now that Eloise is much more mobile, because it's hard to keep her on the changing table. So this is nice because I can just pull it over her head really quickly. This opens up wide enough so that it's not hard to get it over her head at all. Before, when she was still, you know, not moving around so much, and I had her lying down on her back when I was changing her, it was nicer to have these flapping open onesies, you know, that like you don't pull over their head, they open up like this and they have snaps that close on each side. But now I prefer these ones because then I can just keep her in place long enough to do these 3 snaps on the bottom. So yeah, this works really well, and this is basically something that she wears every day. She hasn't worn any of these yet, so actually I'm really excited to put them in her drawers and get her wearing them, but I just finished them last night. But that's a pattern that I have made for her many times. And I made her another one. This is the same bodysuit number 9 from Brindle and Twig, and this is in a really soft jersey fabric that I bought when we were like one of the last trips that we went on in the Netherlands to visit my friend. We went to Stephen and Penelope, the yarn store, and right next to Stephen and Penelope is a fabric store. So we stopped in there quickly, and I was pretty pregnant at that point, and I decided that I wanted to just get some nice jersey fabric. They had quite a nice selection there that I would someday make some baby clothes out of, and I ended up getting 1 meter of the fabric, which I made a jersey blanket, just kind of a baby blanket, a square blanket with this on the back, and then some floral fabric on the front. And then I had enough left over that I made this long sleeve onesie, and I think I probably have a bit. I don't remember if I have any more actually. That might have been the last of it. But yeah, a whole meter went pretty far. So yeah, again, justifying fabric buying for myself. But this fabric is just super nice and soft. I know it's cotton, but it just has a really smooth finish to it, so it's really nice. And then we have some leggings. So also from Brindle and Twig, leggings number 2. So I've made a couple of different legging patterns. The number 22 leggings from them have a drawstring. It's kind of a faux drawstring actually, but they have a cuff waistband and cuffed leg. So this is number 22, which I've done before. And I think this one was really a nice pattern for newborns because you didn't have the elastic digging in on their tummy. Now I don't feel like the elastic digs in the same way as it did when Eloise was newborn. So now I don't mind doing the actual elastic band, as in legging number 2. So this is legging number 2. And you can see from the drawing that there's an elastic band at the top, and then the bottoms, rather than being the cuffed bottoms, are just folded over at the hem. For me, this legging number 2 goes so much faster than the other pair, and I prefer it now. But if you're sewing for a newborn, then I might suggest the other one. I have also modified, I've kind of combined those two patterns and done a cuff waistband with this fold over hem, and that works really well as well. So here's a pair of striped leggings in that same fabric, and the reason why I have the tag, okay, I just like the tags first of all, but actually the primary reason for having tags is so that Thomas knows which direction they go. For me, it's obvious that this is the back because it's higher than the front. For him, it's not. So I put tags in to make that easier for him. And then I have just a pair of black leggings, which are part of an outfit that I have planned, which was going to be Eloise's birthday Christmas outfit. She's born on December 23rd. Now it's really looking like there's not going to be any family Christmas celebration. I don't know. So maybe an outfit is a little less important, but I already have everything cut out for it, so I'm going to go ahead with it anyway, and maybe we'll take some nice family pictures or something. It's too dark to take family pictures. Whatever. So these are the leggings, which are going to go with the blouse. So in my batch sewing, I only sewed jersey projects because if I included woven projects in that batching for the sewing part, I still included the woven projects in the tracing and cutting part of the batch sewing, but not the sewing part, because you need a different needle for woven fabrics. So this one is not finished yet, but you can see it's all ready to go. So this is a project that I'm really excited for. Oops. I'll just show you. This is the Bonnie top. It's a new pattern from Oh Me Oh My Sewing, and she has a lot of really cute patterns for woven fabrics for kids. And it's basically, this blouse has kind of a little bit of poofy sleeves. So they're going to have an elastic, this is the sleeve. They're going to have an elastic band at the cuff, so it's going to be a little bit gathered and cinched in at the cuff. And then there's ruffles on the shoulder seam, and then also kind of on like a bib part like this, and there's small gathers on the front. I think there's something like 12 different versions that come with this pattern, including maybe a tunic length and a dress length, and then different sleeve options. I am doing the long sleeve shirt version, and I'm using this fabric, which is from Pretty Mercerie, which is a French, I think it's only online, I'm not sure, but it is a green fabric, and as you can see, it's rather sheer. But I think it's going to be really perfect for this blouse. It's a nice green Christmassy color, which is why I wanted to make this Christmas blouse for Eloise. But because it is rather on the sheer side, my plan is for her to have that blouse with these black leggings, and then I decided that I needed to make a little undershirt for her. So this is the tank top from Lowland Kids, and it's really impossible to see anything because it's so black, but yeah, I am super satisfied with the finish on this. I just think it looks really professional. I used some ribbing fabric that I had for the neckband and the armband. And so this is just going to be like a nice little undershirt layer for her to have under that blouse with the leggings, and it says, "This is the back." Dad, this is the back. Okay, so that was a very long walk through all of her projects, but I mean, these days sewing for Eloise is something that I just really enjoy. The projects are small, they're super satisfying, and she wears them all the time. So it brings me a lot of joy and, yeah, satisfaction. So I have the Bonnie blouse set up here ready to sew. And I have one other woven project which is ready to sew, and that is for a little bunny rabbit project, which I'm planning on sewing for Eloise as a little birthday present for her. She's only going to be 1, so I don't think that she's gonna like have any memory of her birthday, but for me I think it will be nice to have something that I know that I made her specifically for her first birthday. So I just have the pieces, but you may recognize this fabric. I made her a little ruffle romper from Omeo My Sewing also in this fabric, and my plan is to sew the bunny up in this, and I think it's going to be super cute. It's going to have little pink fabric on the inside of the ears, and this is going to be the outside of the ears and the body, and I just think it's going to be really sweet, and I'm looking forward to sewing it. But it kind of took a little bit of a back seat when I realized that she was kind of critically low in the clothing department. So that is all the sewing that I've been doing. I have 2 projects for family members in Colorado that I would like to sew up for Christmas. It seems like they're probably not going to be sewn in time to arrive in time, because shipping to the US right now is taking at least a month. But they'll get them at some point. Yes, so let's do a little bit of knitting talk. I have some new designs in the works that I'm really excited about. Last time, I believe I showed you this sweater, which was in progress, and now it is finished. I just need to take pictures of Eloise wearing this, which is proving to be the hardest part. It is now quite dark in Sweden, where we live, for most of the day, but there's a nice chunk right in the middle of the day where, well, Eloise is usually asleep, but there is a short period of time in the middle of the day where it's light enough and Eloise is awake. It's usually when we have lunch, but you know, I could just make it happen one day. But Eloise is currently very obsessed and distracted by my phone. Usually I take pictures. I don't usually take pictures on my phone anyway, so that doesn't really matter, but if I want to take a quick picture, I might do it on my phone. It's really not possible, because every time that my phone comes out, she just runs towards me and wants the phone, which is unfortunate, but she's a corona baby, so that's how she sees her family members. The other option is to take pictures with my camera that I'm recording with now. The problem with that is that when I try to take pictures with the camera, when I press down to take the picture, a red light on the front of the camera pops up. I guess it's something with the focus, I'm not sure actually. And she just stops everything she's doing and stares at it with a very like blank look face, and it's really hard to take pictures of her. So I haven't taken any pictures for the pattern yet, which is what is delaying it. This pattern is currently with my test knitters, and it is a brioche sweater, which is My version here is knit with fingering weight held double. You can also achieve a similar gauge with DK weight or fingering weight held with mohair. And it's a nice squishy sweater. One of the skeins that I used is the Arwetta Classic, and in this color, which is 101. And then I also used a hand-dyed yarn from Frida Fuchs, and it's the color Hanami, maybe, which I think has something to do with cherry blossoms. I talked about this yarn last time, and how it had been sitting in a project for a long time, and it was super satisfying to get it out of that project and into something that I really like. So now Eloise just needs, I just need to take the pictures of her in this so that she can wear it and, yeah, take full advantage of this nice squishy warm sweater. So my test knitters are working on it right now. It sounds like I might need to make the neck a little bit bigger because this one fits over Eloise's head, but I think that is an adjustment that I'm going to make to the pattern, is that some testers are finding that it's a bit too small for the neck hole. So I'm very appreciative of them for that. So that is the Eliza sweater, inspired by Stress Knits Stacy from Stress Knits' daughter Eliza's sweater. So there we go. Another design that I have coming out shortly, which just started the test knit for it this week, and my version is still missing buttons, which I have the buttons actually right over there, but I haven't sewn them in yet. This is Little Hearts for Kids, and this is the size 18 months, which I made for Eloise. It's a little big on her right now. I'm not really in a rush to take the pictures for this, but I don't know. I'm kind of thinking like maybe it should come out for Valentine's Day, but maybe it should come out before Valentine's Day so that if you want to knit it for a child for Valentine's Day, then you could. I'll probably just, it'll come out when I have pictures of Eloise in it, but the pictures might be a little bit big on her still. I don't know. Anyway, I have a little pair of jeans for her to wear with this, and I'm picturing her wearing this with a little white t-shirt and her jeans rolled up, and I think it's going to be super cute, but I just need to sew on the buttons, which sometimes is the part of the project that takes the longest. Yeah, and get the pictures for her. I knit this in Flora Yarns, which is a Swedish hand-dyed yarn company, and I used Umio is the gray color, and then Night is the blue color, and I think it's a really nice combination on Eloise because she has really bright blue eyes, and I think she just looks really good in gray. So there it is. This pattern is based on my original design from 2015, the first knitting pattern I ever came out with, which was Little Hearts, and I've been asked many times for a kid sizes for this. So this pattern will be available in size 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, and 10 years. And the sizing that I do is based on age, because sometimes I think oftentimes people are knitting kids sweaters for gifts, and so you don't always want to ask the parents like to measure their child. But if you're knitting for your own child and you like if you have the kid there, you can measure them, because I also provide body measurements. So you know, all kids are different, so maybe the 4-year-old size fits your 3-year-old or fits your 5-year-old or your 6-year-old. You know, you just can base it off of the body measurements too. But I have based both of those patterns off of the standard children's measurements, which are on the, I think it's called the Yarn Council website, which has like standard measurements for women, men, and children and babies. So that's what those are based off of, so I think you can be pretty confident in the sizing. I'm super excited about those two sweater patterns. They're with my test knitters now, and yeah, I hope you also like them. The last pattern that I'm currently working on for like design pattern, there's one that I have a swatch which I don't have with me, so I'm not going to show you that one at the moment. This is a bonnet pattern that I've been working on, and this is going to be called the Lorna hat or the Lorna bonnet, and it's just a simple tie under the neck bonnet. It is knit in fingering weight yarn. I knit this particular sample in the main color is called Blush, and that is from the Wool Barn. This is leftover from a sweater that I made, the Swag sweater. So this has a really nice kind of, the main color has a little bit of variegation in it, some pinks in there, some golden colors. It's a much warmer actually than it shows on the camera at the moment. And then the contrast color is Drizzle from Hey Sister Yarn Co., who no longer dyes yarn, but they have beautiful colors. And then this pattern is, the neckband is finished. I'm really happy with how this construction came out, because I started knitting this in the round, and that's because the same thing with this cardigan. This cardigan is knit flat, and some people are really intimidated about knitting color work flat. For this pattern, there's such a small amount of color work that you have to knit flat, and if you think about it, that it's only half of these rows which are purled in color work. For me, the potential, I don't find it difficult or annoying, but the potential difficulty of doing these few rows purled in color work still greatly outweighs the hassle of steeking this. So if you wanted to knit it in the round and then cut up the center, then you have to like do the button band thing and make sure its stitches are nice, and I don't know. For me, this is a much cleaner finish, which has a button band that's knit at the same time as the cardigan, and then you don't have to deal with steeking. And for me, it just works out. So I hope that that also works for you. You're welcome to steek it if you want. You're just gonna have to do a little bit of adjusting of the pattern, but not much. And if you're familiar with steeking, you've probably done that in the past. And there's tutorials and stuff about that on YouTube you could follow. So this is also color work, and it's knit flat. Originally, when I cast on this design, I started it in the round, and I also had the dots much closer together, and I ripped it out because I didn't like it, and it was annoying to knit. It wasn't annoying to knit the color work in the round, but the whole time I was knitting it, I was thinking, is this steek actually gonna work? Is this actually gonna come out how I want it? And if it doesn't, then I'm going to have cut this beautiful yarn that I have. I mean, for the drizzle, it's beautiful yarn, but I only have used a very small amount for this project. But I was really worried about cutting into this blush yarn from the Wool Barn that I just really love. And it's a leftover kind of scrap piece of yarn that I had. So I really didn't want to potentially waste the yarn on that if the steek didn't work out. So then I ripped back and I decided, no, I'm going to work out something else. So this bonnet is constructed, you cast on here, knit flat to this point, and then it's joined in the round with the shaping, and then it's Kitchener stitched at the back. Then I have an I-cord bind off on the neckband, and that just makes the edge so nice. It's a really pretty finish on the inside and the outside. So there it is on the inside, there it is on the outside, and it just goes right into the neck cords. What are those called? So yeah, super happy with how this came out. And yeah, you can add a little pom-pom, I think it's cute. So I'm planning on knitting another sample for this pattern, and that's probably what I will cast on next actually. And the yarn that I'm planning to use for that other sample is this beautiful yarn from Flora Yarns, which is what the hearts in Little Hearts for Kids is. This is Night. And then for the contrast color, I'm planning to use this golden color, which is Hey Sister Yarn Co. And I made Eloise some leggings out of this yarn, which is what most of it went to. So this is just my leftover part that I have. Yeah, so I think this is going to be the other sample. I've thought about knitting a third sample in the Drizzle as the main color, but I don't know, I probably don't need that many bonnets. So yeah, I just gotta decide what size I want to do for that other one. And that pattern is not finished yet. I haven't written it up all the way. I've started, and I have one test knitter, but if you are interested in test knitting, I already have a couple of people who I kind of contact first regularly for test knitting. Otherwise, I put out a call on my Instagram stories. But if you're interested in test knitting that pattern, or if you want to be notified in the future, you're welcome to send me an email with your Instagram and Ravelry name. Yeah, I've been in kind of the designing mood. I have another sweater that is swatched, but that's as far as I've gotten, which I'm really excited about. Let's see. I'll show you some of the yarn that I got for that. My camera likes focusing even less when I don't have perfect light, so that's why I have to keep reaching and refocusing. So if you have heard of Natura, it is I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's how I'm gonna say it. It's a French yarn company that uses, I think it's Portuguese merino, and maybe also some from France. Ulysse, or however you say that, is the sport weight. There's also a worsted weight, and they also have worsted spun yarn. I think there's a fingering weight too, and maybe some other types of fibers besides just wool, potentially some cotton or silk. I got a couple of new colors recently. I placed an order at Mockery 14, which is a Swedish yarn store in Stockholm, which I don't live in Stockholm anymore, so I ordered from her shop, and I just love all the colors so much. I wanted to order everything, but I kind of restricted myself. There's a huge pile over there, so I clearly didn't restrict myself that much. But one of the colors that I really like is this new, I only remember the English translation. So this one is Birch, but it's in French. And no, previously the kind of marled white version was Poivre Blanc. And that was a much warmer marled white. This, I think, is the white that's mixed with black rather than maybe white that's mixed with a dark brown. So this has a cooler tone to it, and it's really appealing to me. So I have another sweater planned for, like, this is my constant dilemma. I I have these ideas for sweater projects, but maybe Eloise doesn't need 100 sweaters. So I would like to just make, you know, I could make a 2-year size, I could make a 3-year size, but then I don't have a model for it, for the pattern. So I don't know. I need to decide what size I'm gonna make. I need to write the pattern. I need to knit the sample, but I have the swatch and it's exactly what I was imagining. So that's what this is going to be. Okay, one more project for Eloise. This is a pattern by Snood and it's called the Mini Snood. And that's what I'm gonna go with because I think that otherwise this type of garment is called a dickie, which I think is a super weird name for a garment. So we're gonna go with Mini Snood. And this is knit for very practical purposes, which is that Eloise has this snowsuit that she wears, and the zipper is kind of weird because you can't really zip it up all the way, because if you zipped it up all the way it would be like covering her face. But so then it has to be unzipped a bit, but then it's like, you know, uncomfortable, maybe rubbing on her chin, and then I just feel like it's a little bit cold. So I made the Mini Snood for her to wear, you know, as a warm garment on her neck and on her chest, so that her snowsuit can be unzipped a little bit for a bit more room. And I think this is going to be a really practical thing for her to have. This is knit in just under 1 skein of Brooklyn tweed shelter, and I knit the smallest size. I think there's 2 sizes. And it was really interesting because this is the first time in kind of a while that I've knit with Brooklyn tweed shelter, and I've knit with the Natura much more lately. They have a very similar feeling to them in the kind of, they're a little bit foamy almost feeling, like squishy in a foamy way. A little bit dry, I would say, dry feeling compared to like a sock yarn merino, which doesn't feel wet, but doesn't feel like, I don't know why, yeah, it just feels dry. It's very lightweight because it's worsted, it's woolen spun. The very interesting thing for me was that knitting with the Brooklyn tweed yarn after having knit with the Natura for so long now is that this yarn has so much more vegetable matter in it, which is all those little sticks and twigs. It also has a lot more of the spinning oil left in it, so it has a particular smell when you're knitting it, and it has a particular feeling on your fingers when you're knitting it. It doesn't bother me. Holst Garn Super Soft still has spinning oil in it. That bothers me so much that I need to wash the yarn before I knit with it. It did bother me a little bit more this time how many sticks and little twigs there were in it. So personally I think that I would tend more towards Studio Natura. Also for me that's much easier to get here. This is a skein that I've had in my stash for a long time, so this was the perfect project for it. But yeah, that's just kind of a comparison, I guess, to the 2 different yarns. Here's the Brooklyn Tweed Loft skein. And yeah, it just has a lot more little twigs still left in it. I'm pretty sure that the Natura is... Okay, maybe I can't compare them because this one is a fingering weight and this one is a sport weight. So this one is 185 meters and this one is 275 yards. So, you know, you can guess they're a bit different. And they're both 50 grams. But I'm pretty sure that this one is about twice the price of this one. And I prefer this one, I think. I also still really like Brooklyn Tweed, so I'm not trying to like diss Brooklyn Tweed in any way, shape, or form. But it was just something that I noticed this time knitting with it. My last thing that I've been working on is a knitting project, adult sized. And all my stitches just fell off. Okay, so this is actually a test knit that I'm doing for Sarah Blackbird Knits on Instagram, and she has a Swedish podcast with Nord Knits, who I've met Nord Knits, Veronica, in person, but I have never met Sarah in person. And this is, yeah, a pattern that I'm test knitting for her. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but it is a t-shirt pattern. I just am on the row to separate for the sleeves, so I've only separated one of the sleeves. Kind of the interesting feature about this sweater is the saddle shoulder, I guess you would call it, construction. And yeah, I'm knitting this in some beautiful yarn, also from Flora Yarns, and this particular color is called Dark Sandstone. I'm currently alternating between 2 balls of that yarn, and I have one more. It is a 90% merino, 10% linen yarn. So that's the first time I've worked with that combination. It doesn't feel like linen really at all, but the blocked swatch was very much more drapey. The swatch had a much nicer, not nicer, but like it just, I could tell that there was something different with it, like the linen content was more obvious to me in the swatch, just how it kind of behaved. It has an ever so slight little halo on it with a little bit of like linen pieces that kind of stick out here and there, which I think just kind of adds to the character of the fabric. Yeah, Dark Sandstone. This is a single ply yarn, which I wouldn't usually use for garments, but I think that for a t-shirt it's going to be really perfect. So that is the only other thing that I'm working on. The only other thing, I just started a million things I'm working on. That's kind of it. Today's Thanksgiving. We're not with any family except for ourselves. We are currently kind of in the, I would say the most strict form of a lockdown that Sweden has at this point. And just hoping that that will be enough to maybe allow us to ease restrictions before Christmas. So I hope you are all well and enjoying your making. Looking forward to the Advent Christmas season coming up, if that is something you celebrate. And I hope that your knitting and sewing is bringing you joy. So until next time, happy knitting, happy sewing.